Let me give you the guidelines of what we want to do this evening. The purpose of a debate in a Republican primary is to create a format that allows the citizens to learn more about the candidates and who is best qualified for the office sought and matches the ideals and the tenets of the Republican Party platform. That platform, if you are not aware of it, is 32 pages long. This platform has come from the grassroots up. It starts every primary. After the primary voting is completed, there are precinct caucuses. And in those precinct caucuses, you as citizens, if you attend those caucuses, can make suggestions to have planks put in or removed from or modified in the platform. So I would suggest, if you haven't done that you go to a precinct convention meeting after the March 6th primary polls close at 7 o'clock at your voting poll and participate in that process. It doesn't come from on high, it comes from us, the grassroots, and works through the process all the way to the state convention. The tenor and demeanor of the debate. It is expected that each candidate will remain within the time limits set for the debate, maintain professionalism and civility throughout, refrain from name-calling, innuendos, and speculations, and will base answers on documentable facts and figures that can be verified post-debate if requested. During the questioning sequence, we would ask the audience to refrain from cheering, booing, clapping, or otherwise distracting from the time process of keeping on schedule and obtaining as much information about each candidate as possible. After each opening and closing statement, you're welcome to applaud for each candidate. That's after the opening and closing statements. The sequence in which people will appear in each race was done based on a drawing at Brad's office by a non-interested staff member, of which we witnessed as panelists for the order of those speaking, both in the opening statements and then reverse order for the closing statements. Questions will be also asked alternate back and forth between the order that was selected through the drawing. The format, the opening statement, each candidate has a 2-minute opening statement. And we don't have any state level candidates, so I'm going to go with that. Questions, there'll be 4 to 8 maximum questions. They will be directed to the candidates from us as the panelists, with a format of general questions rotating between the candidates as to who answers first. The source of these questions has come from citizen input and the panelist research. Each candidate has 1 minute to answer the question that's directed to them. If the question is directed to both candidates, they each have 1 minute to answer. Then we'll allow rebuttals back and forth for 30 seconds each, for as long as the moderator feels it's either entertaining or productive. Mostly productive. And if it gets too acrimonious, it'll be stopped and we'll move on to the next question and statement. If a candidate would like to respond, they should raise their hand to be recognized so that we know that they are interested in doing a rebuttal. Closing statements are 1 minute each, and they will be in the reverse order from the opening statements. Our first race tonight will be the Zandt County District Attorney race. That's Heath Chamness and Tonda Curry. If y'all will come up, please, to the stands up here. And Heath, you are at, Mr. Chamness, excuse me, you're at number 1. Ms. Curry, you're at number 2. And then our county judge race will be next. So Mr. Kirkpatrick and Mr. Blackman should be seated at the table behind us. Mr. Chamness, you'll have 2 minutes for your opening statement. The mic should be on. Are we hot? Yep, you're on.
So I had this elaborate thing planned out as to what I was going to say tonight, and then I thought, you know what, I'm just going to go and I'm going to tell them why I'm here and why I'm asking for your vote. First and foremost, I want to bring the county back to the citizens of Zandt County. How do you do that? Well, there's a lot of different ways. One of the ways you do that is you actually take cases before citizens of this county and you let them decide what the value of those cases are. Instead of seeking to plea bargain multiple cases, you allow the citizens to make a determination as to what they believe cases are worth. Once you do that, you can start moving cases within the county. That's one example. The other thing is, and this is really important, there's been a lot of talk last night in our district judge debate about the resources of the county. The district attorney's office can have an enormous impact on the resources of the county. Number one, the quicker you get those cases prosecuted, that's less time that you've got court-appointed attorneys who are working on those cases. That's less time they spend in jail. That's less time we're feeding those folks. If they need to go to TDC, they go to TDC. And if they're probation eligible and they're worthy of probation, you put them on probation and they begin paying fees into the county. There are several ways that can affect the overall budget. Finally, I am a supporter of the Constitution, and I firmly believe that everybody has a right to trial. I do not believe that individuals should have criminal cases hanging over their head for 8, 7, 6, 5 years before they're resolved. And if elected, I will be a working district attorney. I will be in court. Thank you.
Ms. Curry, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you. I want to start out this evening by applauding you for being here, for taking the time to invest in your community to learn about the candidates. I also want to thank you for the opportunity to speak to you, and I want to make a pledge to you. And that is at the end of this campaign, regardless of the outcome of the election, you will be able to say, Tonda Curry never lied. When I filed to run for this office, I filed the Fair Campaign Practices Act. That's an oath I take very seriously, an oath I am trying my best to live by. Any fact, figure, or number I give you tonight, I have the documentation to back up right here with me or at my table, and I'll be happy to show it to you. I want to earn your vote. I want to earn your vote because I have the experience to handle all aspects of the job of criminal district attorney. I'm committed to making our community a safer place to live. There's only one person in this race who has 14 years of prosecution experience. There's one person who has less than 2 years. I started my career as an assistant U.S. attorney right here. I was prosecuting organized crime and drug trafficking organizations in Zandt County and all over East Texas. Doing that, I had the opportunity to lead FBI agents and DEA agents in investigations. I have led multidisciplinary teams of professionals who investigate and prosecute child abuse and sexual abuse of children. I have picked capital murder juries. I have done every aspect of this job. Like the rest of the county, I didn't know that our current district attorney was not going to seek re-election. It's been accused that I moved here just to run for district attorney. I want to dispel that rumor now. That is not the truth. I am running for district attorney because there is no other lawyer in this county who has the prosecution experience to do the job.
Thank you. Our questions will begin with Brad Blakemore. First question.
This question is for both candidates. And Ms. Chambliss, or Mr. Chambliss, you go first. How much experience do you have as a prosecutor? And explain details of that experience, including how many cases and what types of cases they were.
I started off straight out of law school at the Smith County District Attorney's Office. During that time period, as most new prosecutors are, that I worked as a misdemeanor prosecutor up until the point that I got ready to leave the district attorney's office, in which I assisted on some felony cases. At that point in time, I left that office. I went into civil practice. The majority of those misdemeanor cases are what you would expect: DWIs, simple assaults, etc. I went back to the district attorney's office in December of 2016, and I hired in as a felony prosecutor. During that time period, I worked on every single type of case you could think of other than a capital murder case. During that time period, we had 23 different felony charges that went to trial in Smith County, each of which resulted in a conviction. So I can't sit here and list every case. I can tell you I've worked on all of them but capital murders.
Ms. Curry?
Thank you. I started my career, as I told you a moment ago, as an assistant United States attorney. I spent 12 years doing that. 12 years, every day, I walked in and out of a courthouse as a prosecutor. 12 years, every day, I dealt with law enforcement officers, I dealt with laws, I dealt with locking up criminals. I worked briefly at the Smith County District Attorney's Office in 2011, where I was a felony prosecutor. While there, I was charged with representing the district attorney himself at all murder scenes. I was the one who was in charge of making sure that the evidence collection methods used by the officers were constitutional, correct, and would result in admissible evidence. I spent 11 months doing that for the District Attorney's Office in Smith County. I also sat on the Children's Advocacy Center team and oversaw all sexual abuse of children and physical abuse of children. For the last year, I've been your chief felony prosecutor here in the Van Zandt District Attorney's Office.
Okay, do we have any rebuttals? Hold applause. Remember, this is a questioning session. During questions, please don't applaud. Applause. Any rebuttals back and forth? Either one?
I would like to know from Mr. Chamness how many times he has been a lead felony prosecutor on a felony case. Jury trial. I'm sorry, Bob. Jury trial.
Lead felony prosecutor in the sense of that I have picked the jury myself.
First chair lawyer for a felony trial.
In Smith County, we have first chair designations, we have second chair designations. We split up the work. During the time that I have been in Smith County up until November of last year, I was designated as a second chair attorney. However, in several cases, I was involved in leading the questioning of some of the key witnesses. I've also picked juries. So to answer your question, I guess 2 or 3 where I was the sole attorney that worked on that particular case.
Okay. Our next question is from Ken.
This is for both of you. Ms. Curry first. How many times have you personally handled a death penalty case or selected a jury for a death penalty case? And what were the outcomes, if you can remember?
I have been death penalty certified in this state, which is a special designation that you get after your law degree. I have been death penalty certified in this state since, I believe, 2008. I have personally, and let me back up and say, the law in the state of Texas says when someone's life is at stake, when it's a death penalty case, that person is entitled to at least 2, sometimes 3 lawyers. So there's a team on both sides, whether it be prosecution or defense. I have been a part of that team, I believe, 5 times, maybe more. I have done that from the defense side, and I have never had a client wind up getting the death penalty.
Ms. Chapman?
How many times have you done that particular thing as a state's prosecutor?
Stand by just a minute. You have 1 minute to answer the same question. We're not in rebuttal. It's for both. That's for both. How many times have you personally handled a death penalty case or selected a jury for death penalty?
The answer to that question, and actually I won't even need to go a full minute on this one. I have never handled a death penalty case. I've never selected a jury. One thing that is important, though, that I think that everyone here should know is that Van Zandt County, as a county, in its entire history, has never tried a death penalty case. And so, in all fairness to both candidates, neither one of us can say, unless we've done it somewhere else, that we've handled death penalty cases. There's never been one tried in Van Zandt County. So to answer the question directly, I've never worked on a capital murder case in the sense of picking a jury. I have worked with our office on a few capital murder cases, but those cases would have been tried directly by our district attorney in Smith County.
Yes, thank you. I did it for the prosecution as part of the prosecution team one time when I was with the U.S. Attorney's Office. Death penalty cases at the U.S. Attorney's Office are highly unusual. I have never done it during either of my tenures at a DA's office. However, to correct what Mr. Chamness just said, capital murder cases are very expensive. That's part of the reason that a county like this doesn't have the resources to go into a death penalty case. But we have paid into a fund so that if it is needed, we can do it. It's like having an insurance policy. So that penalty is available to us.
Any other response? Okay, next question is for both of you. First response should be from Mr. Chamness. What are your specific plans for addressing the backlog of criminal cases in the Van Zandt courts?
My specific plan would be to, number one, identify the cases quickly. When you screen in a case, once a case has been indicted, you need to be making offers on that case immediately, getting those offers to the defense attorneys. That way, we're not trying to figure out whether or not that case is potentially going to be a trial case on the day that it comes to trial for the first time. The other thing is, we need to be more aggressive in trying cases. As I mentioned earlier, in the last calendar year, there have been 23 different felony charges in which me and my trial partner were part of a jury trial or a bench trial in Smith County. That's one way. The other thing is, there are sometimes individuals who may be probation eligible, but they're in jail because they can't afford the bond. The district attorney's office needs to understand that situation, and if that's a case that's a probation case, we need to get that individual before the judge, get the plea done, get them out of jail, and get them on probation immediately so that the county is not paying for them to sit in jail on a probation case.
Rebuttals? Either one?
I'm sorry, do I get to answer?
Yes, you can respond in 30 seconds.
Thank you. Well, it would be great if we had an intake division and could screen a case right after grand jury. We do our own intake. The Van Zandt County District Attorney's Office is small. There are 4 criminal lawyers in addition to the DA. We don't have the luxury of having someone who does nothing but take cases to grand jury. I've been to grand jury. I've taken cases to grand jury. At the Smith County DA's office, that's done for them. So my plan is this. When a case is filed with the DA's office, it doesn't get filed with a clerk like it does now. When a case is filed with the DA's office, it's going to be filed with me as the district attorney. The law enforcement officer is going to have a direct line to me. We can look at that case. We can make a decision right then and there. If there's evidence missing, if there's a witness that needs to be talked to further, we can make that decision immediately. And that, folks, makes the case stronger. And a strong case makes a plea case.
Ms. Chambliss.
It is true that we do have a division in Smith County that does grand jury. However, one of the questions that I would have a direct response to that is, are you telling me that the person who takes the case to the grand jury in Van Zandt County is incapable of evaluating that case? That's the problem. I have had defense attorneys from this county as well as from other counties that work in Smith County who tell me on a regular basis that they show up to court and get their offer on the case for the first time the day that the defendant's there. You cannot move cases that way.
Ms. Curry.
Yes, sir, thank you. You ask those same defense attorneys if they're talking about me, and the answer is no.
Response? Okay, next question, Brad.
This is for both candidates. Ms. Curry, you'll be first. What are your specific plans to manage the budget and personnel of the DA office, including compensation and hiring, retaining, and/or firing as needed?
My specific plans for managing the budget of the DA's office include being actively involved in the budget process with the county judge and the commissioners, but it also includes sticking to that budget, hiring, firing, doing what needs to be done. And let me brag for just a minute. We have the best staff in the world at the DA's office right here in Van Zandt County. We have a group of young lawyers who are anxious to learn, willing to be led, willing to be taught. And that creates a type of environment that they get committed to, that they want to stay. And with a leader who can make their job easier, make it a learning experience, make them better lawyers, because that leader has had the experience of doing it themselves, because that leader knows how to teach from their own experience, that will result in the retention in the office.
Mr. Chambers.
I'm going to touch on one thing right at the very end first. One of the things that I have been hearing throughout the community is that there is a fear that if I win this election that I'm going to come in and clean house at the district attorney's office. Number one, that is a ridiculous assumption because first off, I can't run the district attorney's office by myself. Obviously, there would be some changes that I would expect. I want to run things the way that I would want to run it, but in terms of working with the staff, that's obviously something I would want to do, and I plan to do. In terms of the budget, obviously, again, I actually agree with Ms. Curry on this. I think it is important to work with the commissioners and also to work with the county judge, but one thing that I think we can do is we can emphasize more with multi-level agency agreements to where that those asset forfeitures that can occur in large drug bust cases where you may be working with the DEA or the ATF or things like that, that's ways to bring money back into the county, and that's one thing I would seek to do.
Response, either one?
No, thank you.
Okay. Next question from Ken.
This is for Ms. Curry. According to your January 17th campaign finance report, only one or two of your contributors are from Van Zandt County. Why are people outside the county supporting you financially to run for our district attorney position?
Okay, if we were in court, I'd say objection speculation, because you're asking me to speculate as to why somebody else does something and what is in their mind. I can tell you that they are people who I know. Most of them are people who I have known for a long time, and they are people who believe that wherever I practice law, wherever I prosecute, they know that I have done it the right way, that I am true to my word, and they know that I would be an asset as a district attorney of Van Zandt County.
Your response? Okay, that concludes our questions for our DA candidates. You'll have 1 minute for closing statements. Ms. Curry, you'll be first.
Thank you. I open this evening talking about my experience versus that of my opponent. I want to close in talking about my commitment. My opponent's asking you to do something that he himself hasn't done in a decade. He's asking you to vote and to vote for him. His voting record shows that he has not voted in a Republican primary since 2008. To me, that shows a lack of commitment. A lack of commitment to his community, a lack of commitment to his country, a lack of commitment to Republican values. I, on the other hand, have exhibited that commitment. I have stood in this county, in our courthouse, in front of juries made up of Van Zandt County citizens, and done my best to protect you and to make Van Zandt County a safer place to live. I have one request. If after tonight you don't know who you prefer to be your next district attorney, ask any law enforcement officer you know. Ask them who they are voting for and follow their lead.
I'm going to acknowledge the fact that I have not voted in every Republican primary, and here I am asking you for your vote. Here's why. One of the last questions that was asked was why so much financing from outside sources? And I didn't rebut that because I didn't feel the need to. Here's the reason why I'm asking for your vote. I have lived in this county for 31 years. I have paid taxes. My children go to school here. And here's the thing. I know the pulse of this county. I know what is important to people. And when we're talking about values and morals, I share the same values and morals that each and every one of the individuals in Van Zandt County have. What I want to do is give the county back to the citizens. I want the citizens to determine what cases are worth. And on March the 6th, I plan to draw a line in the sand in regards to the criminal justice system and say, enough is enough, let's fix it.
Mr. Kirkpatrick, you'll start.
Thank you for being here tonight. I currently serve as your county judge. I'm seeking re-election. As I stand here before you tonight, I've done exactly what I told you I would do. 4 years ago, we knew we had issues in Van Zandt County. A lot of people wanted to deny it. It's not as bad as he says it is, but I've done exactly. When I walked in, and on August the 4th, 2014, I raised my right hand and they swore me in. Van Zandt County was in debt, $8.7 million. And I promised you, if you supported me, we would get the debt taken care of. At the end of this year, we will have brought the debt from 8.7 to 3.9. That's not easy. You have to cut the debt. The corruption, I knew we had corruption going on in Van Zandt County. Somebody was stealing your money, and in my opinion, nobody looking for it. And I told you, if you will support me, we'll get to the bottom of it. Ladies and gentlemen, there's a ex-county official that's serving time tonight for stealing your money. Over $200,000 of your money, and I'm the one who had the courage to go in and stand up for you, the taxpayers of Van Zandt County, and hold them accountable. And we are starting to clean it up. Also, I told you that we would keep taxes low. I'm the very one that stood up and voted against the tax increase. I stood alone, stood by myself. It's not an easy job to serve as your county judge, but I committed to you that if you would support me, that I would take care of you. I've kept my word, I've kept my promise, I deserve another term. Thank you.
Mr. Blackman, 2 minutes.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Bill Blackman. I'm not from Van Zandt County. I didn't grow up here. I moved here. I moved here because of the land, the values, and the tax rate. I'm like you, I don't like paying high taxes. My wife is a third generation family from Van Zandt County. My mother-in-law is over here sitting, and she grew up here in Van Zandt County, as did her parents. One of the things that I saw when the reason that I wanted to run for the judge job was to bring my 40 years of business experience at driving revenue and finding ways to fix problems other than through taxation. There has got to be a way to drive revenue into the county to help us grow Van Zandt County. We've had a 1% growth since 2010, a 1% growth. If you look at surrounding counties and you look at their growth, you look at Kaufman County as an example. There are 5,500 rooftops on the books right now for building in Kaufman County. How many do we have? We don't have enough growth. We don't have enough jobs in the county. We need to work on that. We need to find ways to bring small businesses into the county. We need to work with you as citizens to find ways to bring people into the county. We need builders to come in and build neighborhoods. We need to do things to clean up crime. I am a huge enforcer of law enforcement. I feel like we're understaffed, we're undergunned, we're undermanned. We just had the biggest drug bust in the history of Van Zandt County, and we're still officers short. 4 years ago, when Judge took office, we were short officers. We were still sending inmates to Henderson County. Guess what? 4 years later, we're still doing the same thing. We're still kicking the can down the road. Okay, let's talk about the debt for just a second. First of all, as much as I want to give him credit for paying down the debt, he didn't do it. You did. You paid your taxes. You sent your money into the auditor. That tax bill was already set in place by the previous administration before he took office. One of the things that I'm going to do is find ways that we will address the issues that are pending before us that nobody knows about. Thank you.
Okay, we'll start our questioning. First question will go to both of you. Mr. Kirkpatrick, you'll answer first. What do you see as the 3 most significant issues facing Van Zandt County in the next 4 years, and how will you address those?
The number one is still debt. My goal was to get Van Zandt County debt-free. It's amazing to me that we sit here in Van Zandt County and we complain about Austin and we complain about Washington, but when they get in the courthouse over here, they forget and they vote for higher taxes. Let's raise more. Let me tell you something, ladies and gentlemen, you cannot raise taxes high enough for your elected officials. And I'm the one that will stand there and say enough's enough. My opponent said he didn't support higher taxes, but he's on the record for supporting the last tax increase that I voted against. He's on record. He's on record for wanting to borrow money. It was the Commissioner's Court is taped. He said you ought to borrow the money and figure out where to get it to pay it back. It's on record. Ladies and gentlemen, the debt's number one. Number two is your roads. Every one of you says stop.
Yep. 30 seconds. I mean, it's 1 minute on these answers, so you got to really accelerate. Mr. Blackman, you have 1 minute.
First of all, let's talk about the debt, okay? Yes, we need to continue to pay down the debt. No, I did not. That's taken out of context. I asked a question of Freddie Thomas, how much it costs to borrow money. I didn't say he should go borrow money. But even one of the most conservative people that you all know is a very strong advocate of putting this meeting on. Doc Collins even stood up in the Commissioner's Court and said, you need the 3 cents. Okay, even though the judge voted against it. Folks, you got to understand something. He hung the commissioners out to dry. He submitted a budget that was negative, and the only way they could get to a positive budget was those commissioners had to buckle their chin straps, and they had to, and even Tim West voted for the 3-cent tax. When the judge knew in an election year that he could get by without doing it because he knew the commissioners would save the budget.
Yes, but let me just interject here to help the process. Remember that we ask a question, we'd like an answer to the question, and then you'll have a chance to do your rebuttals after that. Mr. Kirkpatrick, would you like to rebut? 30 seconds.
30 I would. Seconds. It wasn't a question, it was a statement. When you ought to raise taxes and figure out where to get the money from. This is going to be an easy decision for you. I'm the only conservative in this race right here. The roads was my second issue. We've raised the budget for the roads, but we have 2 different agendas. You cannot spend and raise taxes.
Response, Mr. Blackman.
Well, I guess we'll ask this question back is that, okay, so if you're going to fix the roads and that's going to be the issue, we got county commissioners that have been wrestling in this for a long time. And the engineer's report that we paid $45,000 for gave recommendations. And we are not following all of those recommendations in all of the county. And we need to work hard on trying to figure out ways to do that.
Our next question is from Ken.
What are your plans? This is for both candidates. Mr. Kirkpatrick, you first. What are your plans as the leader of our Commissioner's Court to handle the jail overcrowding and reducing the cost of outsourcing inmates?
This is a report I ran today of Van Zandt County Jail. You hear about this overcrowding. We got to have a new jail. Our jail's overcrowded. This report here ran today, probably about 2 o'clock tonight. Our jail is a 192-bed facility. 192 beds. We have 142 inmates in custody today. 142 in custody. We still outsourcing 32 inmates at $30 a day. That tells you, if you deduct the 32, we have 110 inmates in a 192-bed facility. The problem's not with the Van Zandt County judge.
Mr. Blackman.
He asked to repeat. What are your plans as the leader of Commissioner's Court to handle the jail overcrowding and reducing the outsourcing of inmates?
Well, I think as a county judge, one of the things you can do to solve that problem is that you can work with the DA's office. That's number one. Number two, you can work with people like Judge Drum, and you can sit down and you can look at the cases that are in the jail, and then you can say, okay, which of these cases can we escalate and move on? But I think the county judge has a responsibility to do that, because at the end of the day, the tax dollars that are going out on anybody we outsource is coming out of our pockets. And we need to find a way to reduce that. But it's called leadership and working with the other people that are involved in the court system to do that. You got to work with the sheriff's department. You got to spend time with them. You got to understand who's in jail. You got to spend time with the DA, and you got to spend time with like Judge Drum to figure that out.
Response?
Yeah.
30 seconds.
30 seconds. I'm willing to sit down with the sheriff. I've tried to bring people in. When you've got 110 inmates right now in a 192-bed facility, the problem does not lie here. My doors are always open, but you've got to get off. We need a new jail. A new jail costs you over $20,000. $900 and $960 spent a day on the inmates. We need to sit down and figure out a system of how to move the cases through the court system and keep the population low.
Well, there we go. We agree. We need to get rid of the jail. We need to get people out of the jail. The fact is, the jail is broken in certain sections. Okay, there's certain parts of it that you cannot house inmates in because it doesn't meet state jail standards. That's clearly, you need to understand that. If you didn't read the article recently, this is the third time they've been in recently, and they've warned them all 3 times. Okay, that they need to be ready. There's some expenses headed towards making that jail compliant in 2020, which we aren't prepared to pay for at this present time. Okay, so we need to work together, and we need to figure out a way to get that done with the commissioners and with the sheriff's department and the DA.
Do you want to rebut? Any response? Okay. Next question was Brad.
This question is for both candidates, starting with Mr. Blackman. How would you run the county and stay within budget, including addressing the debt of the county? I know we've been all over this question, but it's an important question. So,
well, I think one of the key things that you have to do is you've got to find the alternative revenue streams that we haven't been able to find. We have to figure out where the growth is going to come from in order to address that. We've got to have tighter budgets. We've got to spend money wisely. We can no longer separate just all 4 precincts. We've got to have everybody rowing in the same direction. We've got to bring leadership in where we can get and look at every single dollar that's spent, and we spend it wisely. We've got to squeeze our vendors and figure out how we can maximize those discounts. In running a business, which I've done for the last 40 years now, every day when I wake up, I got to figure out how to drive revenue. And that's what needs to happen in the county. We need to find alternative ways to raise revenue besides just tax.
how would you run the county and stay within budget, including addressing the debt of the county?
It's very simple, like we have the last 4 years. You stay within your budget. When I walked in on day 1, August the 4th, elected officials was not even paying attention to their budgets. I assure you today they are. They're paying attention to the budget. You have to live within the budget. The balanced budget, you have to propose a balanced budget, stay within it, and hold your elected officials accountable. It would be nice if we could sit here and buy everything, but guess what? You're the ones paying for it. Sometimes we don't have everything we would like to have, but we have what we need to have. And just stay within your budget, stay the course as far as the debt. We brought it from 8.7 to 3.9, and I believe in this term, and my goal is to eliminate it in the next 4 years.
Response?
Well, today at lunch, Tim West talked about a bond, or excuse me, a grant that he's been he's on his 3rd attempt to get the grant for the repair of the courthouse. That's a $5 million expense. So we talk about paying down the debt, but we're not maximizing every angle and opportunity to raise revenue to offset some of these expenses. Okay. Secondly, I'm not in 100% agreement that we're paid down the debt. I think you got to look at the ceiling of some of the other expenses that we're potentially exposed to. Just look at the courthouse, $5 million.
Next question will go to both candidates. Mr. Blackman, you'll be answering first. As CEO of Van Zandt County, what would be your plans to attract businesses, jobs, investments, and maintain the quality of life of the county?
Wow, a 1 minute answer? As I said before, for the last 40 years, I have been in a position to either own my own company, which I do now, or I've worked for as a senior executive in corporate America. Driving revenue, building businesses, building winning teams. That's what I've done. That's what I've done my whole career. I am a driver. I am a problem solver. I am going to figure out ways to embrace new ideas, fresh ideas. I'm going to bring people that are successful in this county now to the table and invite them in to get their ideas. We've got some fabulous minds in this county. We've got some great business owners in this county. And what we need to do is we need to sit down with them and see who their contacts are, what their thoughts are. What are your thoughts on how we're going to drive this revenue? We need to find this out. We need to form committees. We need to get this done, and we need to work together to make it happen.
Mr. Kirkpatrick.
As county judge, we paid $2,500 for a pyramid report to come in and do a study of Van Zandt County for our economic. We also partnered with the city of Wills Point a year ago to bring Brazos trailer manufacturing here. We negotiated, cost Van Zandt County $15,000, and we was competing with another county to bring Brazos in here. We successfully brought them in here. Their sales is over 1.5 million annually, and I'm currently in negotiations, I'm not at liberty to discuss, with another company coming in, $130 million company is looking at Van Zandt County. It's not like anything's not happening. We're bringing industry in. It's not going to happen overnight. You have to stay committed, keep the course. It's slow, but it can be done.
If you want.
All right, great. Okay, so for 4 years, we've waited. Now we got a $135 million company that nobody knows about. Wow, I'm impressed. Listen, congratulations. I hope it happens. I really do. But here's what I do know. Nothing's happened. The Brazos trailer deal was Pam Pearson that did that, okay? The county didn't have anything to do with that. County judge didn't have anything to do with that. That was all done by the EDC. And what we need to do is we need to explore how we use those EDC monies that are sitting out there that we haven't used in years.
Response?
Yes, he says we didn't have anything to do. I don't know if Pam's here tonight, but are you going to release us from the $15,000 we committed? We did have something to do with it. We partnered with the city, with Pam and the city of Wills Point, and we brought that Brazos trailer company in, and we are in the process and in negotiation to bring in a $130 million company in here. But you got to get your infrastructure in place.
Okay, our next question, Brad.
This is for both candidates, starting with Mr. Kirkpatrick. Describe how you would work with other elected officials, especially the DA, sheriff, and judges. And I know you currently are doing that, Mr. Blackman. You would describe how you would.
I do currently work with the district attorney. I think the DA's office, I think we have a great working relationship. My job is completely different from the DA's. As chief financial officer of Van Zandt County, I'm not prosecuting people. So we have a great relationship. The door's always open. I will tell you, when you're the county judge and you hold the reins on some budgets, you offend some people. And then they join out, and let me tell you something, they find you an opponent and they want to eliminate you. Oh boy, we need what we need, and you're not listening. We will get you out of the way. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm committed to you and no department in Van Zandt County. I support you. You put me here, and I will work with these departments if they're willing to work.
Mr. Black.
Describe how you would work with other elected officials, especially the DA, sheriff, and judges.
Well, I majored in criminal justice when I was in college. And so I do have a fond affection for law enforcement. So working with law enforcement is probably going to be the easiest thing. Working with the DA, I look forward to that. I mean, I really do. I think would be a great idea. I think the idea that I have an open door, I've always had an open door. We have an open door at our house. You can come by anytime. We'll cook, we'll do whatever you want to. But I think you have to get up out of your chair. I think you have to go see them. I think you have to go and get involved. I think you have to go to the sheriff's office. I think you have to go to the DA's office. I think you have to immerse yourself into the job and not just expect them to come knock on your door. And just because we don't really, as the county judge's position, you don't really have any control over them, okay? You appropriate some money on the budget for the DA's office, and and the county commissioners and you work together to provide money to the sheriff's office, but you can't really make them, they don't report to you. So you've got to reach out and go see them.
We're going to have our closing statements now, and there'll be 1 minute. Mr. Blackman, you'll be first.
All right. I wrestled with this for a long time on what I would say as my closing statement. First of all, I want to thank you. I want to thank my wife and my family. I want to thank God for being here. I believe that we can do better. I think we know we can be better. I think Van Zandt County is a great place to live. When we moved here because of the land values and the opportunity. We've built a small farm. We've got 75 acres. We've got 4-legged non-revenue producers, too many to count. We've gotten into the cattle business courtesy of the Metches have taught us a lot about the Hereford business. I'm honored to be able to stand here and be able to talk to you tonight, but I can promise you one thing. There has never been anybody as a county judge in Van Zandt County that has my background and my experience. I used to get in trouble with my mother, who is a United States Marine. She and my father met at Camp Lejeune, and I can tell you this, I always got in trouble for asking why. Why are we doing it that way? And I can promise you, we will find a way to maximize everything we do.
Patrick, 1 minute.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for the opportunity to serve you the last 4 years. It's been an honor and a privilege. And I can stand here tonight and tell you I did exactly what I promised you I would do. We've cut the debt in half. We've cleaned up the corruption. I voted against the tax increase. That's all I can do is keep my word. My word was to you, no one else but to you. I represent you and you only. I will continue to do what we have set out to do. Most of you know that the county's getting in better shape. For the first time, 2017, Van Zandt County, first time in a long time, Van Zandt County will finish spending less money than what we brought in. The budget is balanced, and I am still the conservative choice. Please vote Don Kirkpatrick, County Judge. I'm still the right choice for Van Zandt County. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Joshua Winters, and I want to start by thanking all of you for coming out on this beautiful evening and sacrificing your time to learn a little bit about the folks and the issues that are going to be on the ballot over the next 3 weeks. I hope when you leave here today that you're going to be in the position that I'm finding myself in right now, where you've learned a little something. One of the things that I've learned over the last 2 nights that is pretty much a central issue in my own race is the definition and the treatment of the word experience. Experience is one of those funny things. If you go down Candidates Row over here, pretty much everybody's sign says experience in some form or another. And we know experience is important because the experiences that we have shape our lives, and it makes us approach subjects and topics in a certain way. It colors our thoughts. It helps us deal with problems and work through difficult situations. But it's also one of those things that everybody claims to have, and maybe not so much. I'll give you an example. About 10 years ago or so ago, my wife and I bought one of our nephews a radio-controlled airplane. He loved that airplane, flew it all the time, so much that the next year we bought him another. Now, if he were in this political process right now, somebody would whisper in his ear somewhere along the way and say, okay, what you need to do is tell people, I have flown planes for years. Okay? Now with that said, if you went up to DFW Airport, you got on the airplane and you saw him at the controls, you better turn around and go back, because it's not the same thing. What I'm here to talk to you about in my race tonight, and in responding to questions and in dealing with the closing statement here in a minute, is to talk to you about my experience and how my experience has made me the appropriate candidate and who should be your next county court of law judge.
Mr. Jackson, 2 minutes.
Recently in a book written by the son, actually it was collated by the son of the great late Antonin Scalia. He wrote an essay called, or he did the transcript of a speech, The Vocation of a Judge. In it, 2 really important points are being made. One is there's no clear path to being a judge in this country. In fact, he even quoted the old joke, who is a judge? A judge is a lawyer that knows the governor. Experience is really particularly significant, but just because you said you've played football for a long time doesn't mean you're now qualified to be the quarterback. That's an important element. Also, the Scalia book goes on to talk about the 3 major elements of what a good judge makes. Not only is it uncertain how people always get to the judgeship to begin with, but that there are 3 major qualities of what a good judge would look like. One is a profound commitment to the rule of law. It's not possible to be a good judge unless you're grounded in that. Scholarship would be number 2. Scholarship is the ability to actually apply, do the proper analysis of looking at the law. And then finally, the demeanor necessary to have the public, the people that come through the court system, to fully understand that you're treating people equally and fairly. It does you no good to sell out to short-term thinking, to selling out to personal preferences, political biases, and to have that perception be at least even a little bit communicated to the public. My commitment would be to try to live to Scalia's standards as best I could.
Thank you. Our opening questions will start with Ken. You'll have 1 minute to answer the question if it's directed to you. I'm sorry, did you have a question?
What name did you say goes first?
He will say which name goes first.
Got it.
Each one will be asked a question. You'll have 1 minute to answer, and then there'll be a chance for rebuttals. In some cases, the question will be asked of both of you. Then you'll each have 1 minute to answer the question, and then we'll start the rebuttals.
This question is for both of you. Mr. Winters will go first. Have you ever been professionally disciplined by the State Bar or Judicial Commission? And if so, how many times, and what were the circumstances and outcomes?
I have never been disciplined by the State Bar. My contact with the State Bar is limited to 3 things. On June 1st every year, they send me a bill. They send me a certification for my admission into the State Bar College and the Pro Bono College. And then third, they renew my certification because I represent children in child protective services and guardianship cases.
Mr. Jackson?
I don't need a long answer here. I've never been sanctioned for anything by the bar.
Okay, any responses? Next question, this will go to both of you. Mr. Jackson, you'll be answering first. If a mediator was appointed in a case, how would you monitor the performance of the mediator for efficient and fair outcome for the parties?
Well, you'd have to periodically review. One of the things that's been a constant theme in my particular practice is disputes over money. I've done a lot of estate planning and probate. It's possible to monitor people with the proper incentives to want to work things out. In the estates code, there's a mandated arbitration agreement called a family settlement agreement. I've been 100% successful in all the cases that have come to that point where people have lawyered up and gotten ready to go. You can work it out with just a little bit of encouragement to see the benefit of settling.
Mr. Winters.
We've had very good luck with mediation in this county. We don't, in the county court of law, there's not very much probate work. There is a significant amount of family work. And as any of you know that's had any experience with family law case, a divorce, child custody, something like that, those are the most emotional cases that exist in our system. And so having a good mediator is a necessity because you have to have someone that has the ability to let the parties talk. Oftentimes their biggest need is to vent. They want somebody to listen to them. And having them be able to tell their story, have somebody listen to that story, and then relate it to what the court process could be, oftentimes keeps children out of the courtroom and out of the witness stand. Irreparable damage goes to parental relationships and the family relationships when their dirty laundry is aired in a courtroom. So anything that we can do to encourage that has to happen.
Rebuttals or comment?
Just a simple comment. I graduated from Pepperdine Law School, which has been ranked #1 in ADR for something like 15 or 20 years in a row. I have great access to great tools.
Response?
I'll just add one other thing. We are very blessed here locally to have mediators that are very skilled. In a bar this size, you find out very quickly. You can find out who the good lawyers are, who the bad lawyers are, who the good judges are, who the bad judges are. No difference with mediators. And so in selecting the mediators for the court-appointed list, very quickly you're going to know the names that need to go on that list and the types of cases each need to receive.
Next question from Brad.
This question is for both of you, and Mr. Winters, you'll go first. Considering the significant family and criminal law caseload handled by the County Court of Law, what specific experience have you had in handling those types of cases?
When I opened my private practice, which was back in 2001, I did a very ingenious thing. I started my file numbering system at 0001. Here recently, I opened file number 5500. I've represented 5,500 cases, and the vast, vast majority of them would be cases that the subject matter would fall into what the County Court of Law either now hears or could, if the relationship is rebuilt with the district court and felony cases are assigned there, those cases it could be heard. I've represented literally you. As I've looked around this room, and don't worry, I'm not going to call out any names, so many of you have entrusted me with those issues because those are the important things to you. Your life, your liberty, your family, your children, those are the types of cases that come before this court on a daily basis. Those are the kind of cases I've handled in this court on a daily basis and for the last 18 years.
Mr. Jackson.
Would you mind repeating the question?
Considering the significant family and criminal law caseload handled by the County Court of Law, what specific experience have you had in handling those types of cases?
I've had minimal experience in those areas of the law. However, those cases are 80% plus mediated out. Good air traffic controller can handle that. I do agree that there's utility in the experience of doing those things, but we've got an equal amount of experience as judges.
Response?
I don't quite understand that last sentence, but what I'll say is this. Of course, criminal cases are not mediated out. Criminal cases are heard on a daily basis. Our County Court of Law has jury trials frequently on criminal matters. They have pretrial hearings on criminal matters. Knowing the ins and outs of pretrial procedure of constitutional law, because most criminal cases revolve around some issue of search and seizure. Family cases, every week we have temporary orders hearing where somebody immediately needs the court to order and determine where a child should go, who should live in the marital property, so forth.
Next question from Ken.
This is for both of you. Mr. Jackson, you'll be first. To equalize the district court and county court at law caseloads, would you be willing to handle more felony cases? And if so, what experience do you have in handling felony and criminal cases?
I'm not a felony attorney. It would be by agreement only, though. It would have to be worked out in a way that the curve would be acceptable to make the transition.
Mr. Winter,
Could you repeat the question?
to equalize the district court and county court at law caseloads, would you be willing to handle more felony cases? And if so, what experience do you have in handling felony criminal cases?
Absolutely, I'd be willing to assist in that regard, and I think that's become an issue in our district court race, depending on how that turns out. For those of you that were around when this court was created, the whole purpose of this court was to take the stress off the district court. You've heard last night about the overburdening caseload that they have, about the need to move cases, about the need to get folks out of the jail. The county court at law is that mechanism to do that. As for felony cases, I have been on both sides of the courtroom on felony cases. I have tried cases where the punishment range is 25 to 99 years or life. I've tried cases where it's a 6-month potential punishment range, state jail felony, all the way up to an enhanced first degree aggravated charge, and everything in between. That's just been a part of my practice, and it would be an honor to assist the district court and relieve some of that burden, relieve it for the court, relieve it for the jail, and allow us to move some stuff along.
Rebuttals, response? Okay, our next question. Next question will be for Mr. Jackson. Public records show that you purchased your current Van Zandt residence in 2009, and the Van Zandt County Clerk has no voting history for you in Van Zandt County, and it appears that you registered to vote here in October of 2017. Can you explain no voting record in either the primaries or general elections and what you have been doing to build Republican ideals in our area?
The office of judge is not a political office in the same sense that some of the others are. As far as building a Republican presence in this county, I made the effort to seek out the endorsements of grassroots other people, Texas Right to Life, and I received both of those. I have lawyers from every stripe of the Republican Party endorsing me, from the moderates to the libertarians to the hardcore individuals as well. Politics to me is been something that I've been fascinated with. I was working on a PhD at the University of Dallas in politics before I went to law school. Practical politics, I haven't been as involved.
Response? Okay, our next question is from Brad.
This is for both candidates. Mr. Winters, you'll go first. Tell us your experience handling contested probate matters which are transferred from the county court to the county court at law.
I have several estates that I've been involved with over the years. Unfortunately, right now, I serve as administrator of an estate where we actually heard this today in Judge Kirkpatrick's court. A brother passed away, and it left a brother behind, and the remaining brother, in the course of the probate, had a heart attack and passed away. And so we got to the point today where we were determining heirship for the family, which is a very, very complicated process, and dividing between mother's side of the family, father's side of the family. And folks were receiving 144th interests. So extremely complicated, especially when you come into issues with land and trying to divide or partition land. So those things come up, and it's just something that's come across my desk in private practice.
Mr. Jackson.
I had a contested matter that involved a taxable estate. That means that the individual was wealthy enough to be hit by the estate tax. It was a second marriage situation and involved a $3.3 million tax penalty because of the lack of estate planning. I used a somewhat complicated methodology of buying the estate tax of the surviving second wife, funding a replacement to the children through a single premium insurance policy, what's called ILIT, and then rolled over the rest of the matter in a Q-tip trust. It was reviewed by the IRS, and I wasn't able to diminish the entire $3.3 million estate tax to zero, but I did take it down to $39.
Rebuttals? Okay. We'll have our, let's have our closing statements now, 1 minute each. Mr. Jackson, you'll be first.
Humbly invoking the blessings of Almighty God. That's the opening words of the Texas Constitution. If any of you have had the misfortune of being on the wrong side of a debate about whether or not this was a Christian country or created to be a Christian country, you can understand why. At least the prime mover in the argument against being able to declare that this is a Christian nation is that in the U.S. Constitution there is no expressly Christian language, with the exception of the date, in the year of our Lord. Other than that, nothing. In Texas, humbly invoking the blessings of Almighty God is how our Constitution starts. Further, when you go down into Article 1, you'll find that it's not even permissible to hold office in this state without acknowledging the presence of God. If you have to argue whether somebody with someone about whether or not we live in a Christian nation, you may lose, but you're not going to lose with the argument that we live in a Christian state here. God bless Texas.
Mr. Winters, 1 minute.
Those of you that are friends with me on Facebook know I do a little thing called Today's Free Piece of Legal Advice. Today's free piece of legal advice is this. If you're going into surgery, you do not want the surgeon that has only read about the procedure in the textbook. If you're getting on a plane, you don't want the pilot that's only done the flight simulator. And if you're going into the courtroom, you want the lawyer that knows the judge. No, I'm kidding. You want him to be related to the judge. This race comes down to experience. I have the experience. The Lord's blessed me with almost 20 years of it now. And my time as a lawyer is coming to a close. And the reason that I've stepped out on this is to use those skills and use those abilities to benefit this county that I love. I appreciate your vote, March 6th.